This is Family Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air on our YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch channels with DeVannon Hubert for the first time. How are you doing tonight?
Marvelous, man. How are you? How are you?
I'm doing fine. I live in lovely New Hampshire, so it's a little bit cold, but we're okay. For everybody that's watching, you'll be able to listen on Newsly. We are a featured podcast on Newsly, so we have to mention for there. If you use coupon code GHOST, you can get 1 month free premium subscription. So stop scrolling and start listening. This podcast will be on Newsly later tonight. So thank you again for being on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's always exciting to talk to people, and I always like to have interesting topics. And as I said, we're going to be reconciling faith and freedom as the topic for this episode. And want to go through your story. So I think I was looking at one of the questions that we'll start with is like, why did you feel a need to create a podcast and to write a memoir?
Well, it felt important to document the things that I had gone through really throughout my whole life, but particularly, with being in Houston, Texas, being kicked out of the church and everything like that, because that was a super pivotal moment for me, a super gut check moment where I realized I wasn't as, mature as I thought I was spiritually. And it was so cataclysmic and eye opening. And so it's one thing to stand up in church on a Sunday morning and testify as they like to do here in the South. And as I did growing up, I don't go to church anymore. But a written testament is much like the Bible, people, when I'm dead and gone, if this world yet remains, people will still be able to benefit from every show that I put out and from every book that I write. So basically, it's a permanent testimony.
I think that's why why we like to put down our music is like, that's, that will survive beyond us. We create that work and other people find it or dig it. A lot of artists get found after they're gone. You want to be known in your time, but it's good to document where your head's at. And I think as like any kind of creative person, the creatives, I think it's really important to actually put it down, because everybody has, well, I got these ideas, and then they never get to do it. So I think it's really cool when people actually actualize what they're thinking and what they're saying, and they do something like a podcast, or you do a memoir, you do a song, you do some action, you actually put it out there for people to get your point of view.
Right, because see, transparency is the thing that saves us. We fall into a death trap when we go through traumatic things in life. And honey, to everyone listening out there, you will go through traumatic things in this life. The death trap is when you feel like you're alone. That's a delusion, the trick of the enemy, that's come to cut you off from support so that you can be destroyed and be defeated. When people write songs and music, movies, books, whatever, it's not just entertainment. They're letting you know you're not alone. I've experienced this recently because I had to break up with my boyfriend back in January. This is like a whole new thing because I found out he had a double life, and all this and going on. And so, yeah, Christmas Eve, my woman's intuition kicked in. And y'all, woman's intuition is real. Woman's intuition is real. Men, you will not get away with whatever you're doing. So you might as well just be honest, because we gonna find out. My woman's intuition kicked in, and I went through his phone on New Year's Eve, and he had him an affair back on October the 16th and slept with somebody when he had COVID. And I know he had COVID because that was the day I went and brought him his Paxlovid COVID medicine. And then a few hours later, he went to go have an affair and never said anything. And that was one of the things that I found. And so I've been going back. Like today, I watched Waiting to Exhale, just an hour or so ago before I got on this broadcast. And movies like that. And I'm going back and watching movies that are about the really terrible things men can do to women. And I find that I'm watching these movies, but I'm relating to them differently. And I'm taking a huge sense of comfort in watching, I'll be watching What's Love Got to Do with It. I've
Yeah,
never
yeah.
looked at it before, but I don't feel alone. It's just me and my house and my cats. But when I'm watching these women on the screen, it's like I'm pulled into their experience, and I feel like I'm just I feel like I'm connected to them in a way that I never was before. Though I've watched these movies time and time again, it's completely different now.
Yeah, it's kind of like the in music, people have like a breakup or something, and they have a song that it speaks to them, right? There's a lot of songs written that speak to romance or broken romance, and people get these like sound paintings. Like a movie is the visual, but music can trigger like a moment in your memory or a point in time that you experience that song with the people, or it brings up memories. And I think it's all art can trigger that in the movie. Like, yeah, you're finding the empathy, that the writer found for humanity. You found something in it that tells you, or the way the actors portray the characters that speaks to you. It connects to you. That's what the art's all about, is trying to connect to feelings and emotions and heart type of efforts. That's why, as a producer, I'm always looking for that. What I think is going to actually connect to somebody's heart rather than just a beat, but what you actually say and what you actually play, is it connecting or
Mhm.
not? But so you were labeled and removed from your ministry positions, and I can understand like in Texas, I guess it's very very conservative, and so is that the result of that kind of conservative vibe in where you are?
I live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana now. When I had my run-ins with the police, in law enforcement, when I was, selling all the drugs and doing all the things, they kind of told me to get the fuck out of Texas and don't come back. So there's no more Texas in my future. That's never going to happen. Thank God for the other places in the world that I can go to, but Texas is lost to me. So how am I going to go with answering this? Overall, yes. The South in general is super closed-minded. It is it's the antithesis of everything I think heaven is, that I think
Mhm.
God is, that I think Los Angeles is, that I think New York is. When you think of a beautiful, resounding place where people respect each other's differences, you will not think of the South. Okay,
Yeah,
period. And
true.
so I didn't have the sense when I was getting out of the military and considering where I was going to go to pay attention to the fact that, okay, I'm queer. Maybe I don't want to go to the South because I'm not going to be as accepted, where I was in California when I was in the military. But I wanted to get back closer to home, family. My siblings are in Houston. My parents are here in Baton Rouge, which is really why I'm here, because they're elderly. Otherwise, I'd take my behind back to California where people make sense. But you can't get old people,
Mhm.
can't get old people to move. They just won't. And so
Yeah, yeah, they won't
and so
move. Grandma won't move.
they won't. They just not. It's period. It's done. And um so I didn't think about it in that way. And so there I am at Lakewood Church, Houston, Texas. Yes, Joel Osteen Ministries, blah blah blah. They basically had kind of like a don't ask, don't tell policy, just like they had when I was in the military. I know the
Uh-huh.
military today is all gay and you can marry men. And my Lord, had it been like that, I might still would have been in there, but it wasn't that way. So
Mhm.
they would call me into the office at Lakewood Church and ask me if like I had a girlfriend. They were very prying into my personal life, but it wasn't until and I lied or whatever. I said, because I'm here to volunteer. I'm showing up on time. I'm staying late to deal with these children so the adults can go into the main sanctuary and enjoy their worship. And I applied for a job there. They did a background check and checked my MySpace page. That's how long ago, that's how new social
Oh,
media
nice.
was. There was
Yeah,
no
yeah.
Twitter, there was no Snapchat, there was none of that.
No Facebook. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's just MySpace and I don't know, Tom, whoever the fuck my friends were. And so they go and find my MySpace page. And at the time I had it labeled bisexual. I didn't even have gay on there, because
Mhm.
my letters tend to change in the LGBTQIA. Now I just claim them all and done with it. So they bring me into the office. I'm thinking I'm about to get the job I applied for. Not only did I not get the job, but I got fired from singing in the Lakewood Adult Choir, from worship leading in the Kids Life Ministry, from teaching in the Kids Life Ministry, and from being a volunteer supervisor in the Kids Life Ministry. Not due to poor job performance, but because I hang out with queer people when I'm not at church.
Yeah,
So,
that's
so
right.
they
Don't mess with Texas stuff.
so they fired. So yeah, they fired me. They offered me a conversion therapy package if I they told me if I would read certain books, and if you accept the books, they're going to put you in therapy to change your mind. They told me I could be demoted to being a greeter or an usher, and then maybe in time, once I become straight, I could work my way back up into their graces.
Yeah, that would probably a big no. It's like I'm out.
It was either,
Yeah.
I don't know if I can cuss on this broadcast or not. I'm trying to like mince my words.
We can mark it explicit. We do mature content.
Okay. My choice will either get up and beat they fucking asses, okay, and catch a case, or walk the fuck out. Because the whole point is they weren't interested in hearing what I had to say. They weren't interested in my point of view. I tried to speak for a moment and I was immediately swatted down. So the decision was made. This wasn't a two-way or a three-way conversation. It was two of them and one of me. So you don't want to hear what I have to say. There's no talking. It's either your way or the highway. So there's either going to be destruction up in this conference room or I'm going to leave. Those are only two options.
Yeah.
So I walked out. And then they were confused.
It's very frustrating. Well, that seems very frustrating to me because we seem today like that happened back in that time, right? But it seems like that kind of old school thinking, we've even gotten to kind of back to the 50s, in some places in the South now where like, you're banning, you're banning books about Rosa Parks and banning if you're gay or trans or anything, like you're banning everything. Like anything that doesn't fit mindset. It's like even back in your time, maybe it was limited, but it was probably the same thing. They wanted to do it, but maybe they couldn't do it. And now we're like in a world where everything's getting restricted.
Let me take this on like a super spiritual track for a moment, if I may. So I don't know, some people believe the devil is real, some people don't. I've wrestled with enough demons in the middle of the night and had to get up and do certain things that I've had. Yeah, for me, the influence of evil is a real thing. What I've noticed is like that spirit of oppression, that spirit of if you don't want to call it spirit, then that mentality, that vibe, that energy, whatever. When people want to destroy you or get rid of you or silence you, it's mimicked through history. And to me, it's the devil poking his head out in different ways, just in different times. That's why we see stuff repeat itself. So whether it's Pharaoh saying, kill all the boys in Egypt, because I don't want Moses to be born, or whether it's Herod saying, kill all the boys because I'm trying to track down Jesus because I'm super insecure about my throne, or whether it's the bombing of Black Wall Street, because we don't want, Black people to have money, or let's stop all the drag shows in Texas because clearly a drag queen is going to brainwash your child just by existing. It's the same sort of thing. Or if it's Ron DeSantis down in Florida cutting up with all his book burning, or the Salem witch trials, and they're trying to get rid of, every woman who dares to have an opinion. It's the same thing. You're rising up. We need to shut you down because we're never going to share the world with you. You could be here as long as you're under our foot or you don't exist. So it's the same evil that just shows up over and over again. And so that's why you're saying it's like it was 50 years ago. Yeah. And then I took it all the way back to the beginning of time. There will always be some fucker trying to tell you need to go.
Yeah. I think it really, in this country, what kind of triggered it, I was talking to another guest before, was like Barack Obama's election really triggered certain people to say, hey, that can't happen again. And we actually need to go and step a lot of this stuff back. And so it was a backlash. So we stepped 1 foot forward, and then people want to knock us like 100 feet back, you know, because they dared the house that we all that's what caused this kind of movement to like MAGA, like of or make America great again. And that's a very negative connotation if you understand it, right? So
Mhm.
so I think that's what where we are is that we're getting into that kind of movement. But if you check the world, it's becoming more nationalistic. It's becoming more like unwelcoming to others. It's starting to gin that way. And it's because of like maybe because of the climate change, because of the pressure, and because of people getting rights and people getting access and people like that other person is now can stand toe to toe with the person that was running top down. And they don't
Mhm.
that's not cool to that group of people in that like 1%. They can't stand it. And so now they want to escalate it. So now we're living in that world, but like you've had to deal with this for a while. Like you were getting hit with it even before all these people now are getting hit with it. And they're like, oh, this is a real thing. But you were having that real thing happen to you back then in Texas.
Right, because we have to remember, and look, y'all, I don't feel sorry for myself about the things that I went through. I'm happy that it happened to me because I was able to handle it, to be brought through it so I can share it with you. Nothing about my story is a pity party or a cry me a river thing.
Mm.
It's about be warned and learned and be strengthened and know that you're not alone. So it you just can't change some people's stripes. And churches have agendas. You know, the whole concept of church to me is not necessary.
Mhm.
Some people need that to learn, and that's fine, but church is school. My whole thing is when you're going to graduate from it, that you're going there to learn. You're not supposed to be hanging on a preacher's titties for the rest of your life. Okay, they want you to hang on their titties because they need your money. They need, they're nothing with an empty building or without people sending, money in there from across the world through their broadcasts. So I sat in church for years, like 20 something years of my life without understanding that these people are kind of sort of there for my own good, but also for theirs too. So it's a mixed bag. And when somebody has an agenda, then their intentions might start off good, but they can very easily become corrupt. And so
Well,
that
this
is the
seems
only.
like a lot of religion seems to deviate from maybe the initial idea of the practice. If you think about Jesus, right, he was kind of like the ultimate hippie. You know, like if you think about the way he was living, you read about it. Like he was with all outcasts, you know, prostitute. He was with people. He wasn't in an ornate church with all this like stuff, right? But he was basically teaching, you know, morals and ideas. They like, oh, you shouldn't kill people. You should love your brother. You should, and he was living it. And I think that was like very probably Romans. He was like, oh, he's a radical. He's a radical. You got to snuff him out. Because if a person acting like that actually showed up and wasn't in church, they probably throw him in jail. If it was like a Jesus showed up the way that I see, the way I read it, he would not be accepted.
No, he wouldn't be accepted. Because anybody is radical in and around a church if you don't play ball and follow their rules and dogma. Free thinking, the church is very much like the military was. You're cool as long as you do exactly what the fuck we want you to do. Because the moment you step out of line, threaten their image, and things like that. Otherwise, why fire like probably like your top volunteer or one of your top volunteers? Because parents were complaining about they're thinking that was going to turn their kids gay, just by
Yeah.
being around them. Kids bring parents to church. Parents bring the money. So in effect, what Joel Osteen and Lakewood Church in Houston, Texas was saying is that DeVannon is fucking up an income stream by existing, showing up here and everything. And by being kind of like flamboyant or whatever. That's what it was. Church members are now considered shareholders and stakeholders because of the amount of money that they give. You're not just members or constituents. It all boiled down to fucking money. It had nothing to do with Jesus. And no, Jesus would not support their decision. Jesus was not the sort of person who's like, throw this one out and cancel this person and stop that. He wasn't like that. He was like, I fucks with the prostitutes and I fucks with,
Yeah. I mean, he's like the ultimate hippie kind of counterculture character that is like a commune type of thing you would have seen in the 60s. It was like open, love everybody, love like hair peace, love peace, everything, no war. Yeah, that's what it was. And he got taken down by the power structure because they didn't like what he was doing. So the idea that a church degrades to like how much money the donors give, or all kinds of dogma that has nothing to do with loving your brother or your sister or the humanity. It has when you get into I got to put this person in this silo, I got to eradicate that even idea this person could even be around. It just seems it's just not very welcoming, warming, or loving.
It's not, but it's deceptively delicious though. It's deceptively delicious and sweet in the sense that people go to church not for altruistic or humanitarian reasons. People go to church for completely self-serving reasons. They're going there to keep themselves from burning up in hell or whatever sort of bad thing they think is going to happen to them if they don't. So first of all, we have to get that clear. That preacher is up there for the same damn reason and also to get your money. Now, what happens is you have narcissistic preachers, and pretty much all of them are. It's very hard to find a humble preacher. When's the last time you heard one of them apologize for anything that they do? So you have a narcissistic preacher telling a bunch of people who sitting in seats that they're better than everyone else, basically. So this strokes the pride of man. I listened to this my whole life. And so they feed off of each other in this very sick, sadistic, narcissistic loop. And so they don't mind giving this man money because they're making them feel good about themselves to the detriment of other people. And so my illustration of this is came across this reel of Tyler Perry, of all people, speaking at Lakewood Church, because you don't have to be like, I don't know if Tyler Perry is a preacher, but as long as you have a following, you can go preach at a church now. You don't have to be Moses or Jeremiah. As long as people will listen to you, you can go say something. And so, as he was closing his message, he was just saying the same shit that I've heard so many preachers say, a million of them. It's talking about like, if your friend is holding you down, leave them behind, and everything, and everyone's clapping and cheering. Okay, it makes the people in church feel good to leave someone behind so they can be elevated. Now they're excited, so they're going to go give money. It's called hypnosis. I learned about this. We're getting my hypnotherapy certification. But we should never rejoice over leaving somebody behind. Like I'm not happy about the fact that I had to break up with my boyfriend and leave him behind because he wasn't moving forward. That's not nothing for me to sit in a goddamn pew and clap about. It's heartbreaking. That friend that you once had, y'all were good to each other at some point. If you must leave them behind, it should not be a cause for celebration.
Oh yeah, I think the problem is like, the throwing people under the bus and basically thinking there's this idea, like there's a Calvinistic type of religious concept. The more money you make, the closer you are to God. The more profit you make, the closer you are to God. It's this kind of Calvinism, and Calvinism and capitalism are kind of tied together. And if you can kind of see it through the history of our country, that this Calvinistic kind of concept that if you don't have money, it's because you're wicked, right? If you're rich, you're a billionaire. That means you're a better person. Even if you're morally deficient, somehow if you have that money, then you are actually closer to God, because God wouldn't let you have that money unless you're a better person than the poor person. which is totally antithetical to what my belief that Jesus would have been into. He would be into anybody, and especially people who are downtrodden shouldn't be disrespected like that. And when you have, the kind of religious fervor about wealth and generational wealth, it goes down a bad road, because then you just can blame people for being in their position, blame poverty when it's structural racism, and there's all kinds of other structures in our society have created poverty. It's not necessarily the fault of the people. It's the fault of the actual kind of caste system we have. So if you go and blame the victim, then you feel good. You feel good that you blame everybody, and then you don't help anybody, but your own group.
And see, people like that completely missed, the parts where Jesus, were saying like he who's without fault cast the first stone. And, when he said, judge not, because the Lord said, if you judge,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, he said, not only will you be judged, but you will receive judgment without mercy. People tend to pick and choose, what they, what they read in the Bible. And some of these scriptures about judgment, people act like they've never heard of them. So I'm gonna give y'all a tip. When there's somebody weak in your presence, in whatever way, if they are strung out on drugs, if they are drunk off their ass, if they are having a mental breakdown or something, what you gonna do? Are you gonna be one of the ones? And I've been in all of those situations in people's presence before, and there's always one of two reactions. Either somebody does something to agitate it, make fun of, they poked fun at me, then things like that, and they make it worse, or they defended me. They had a choice. What God has given you is an opportunity to sow seed for how he's going to judge you one day when you have somebody weak in front of you. You're going to manipulate them, make it worse. What you gonna do?
Yeah. All those people sitting in the pew thinking they're better might have a rude awakening when they get there. When they get to the end, they might find out that, like you really didn't have the right frame of mind. Because when because the problem, I think people are just so today into label, into pushing, just individualism over community, to the point
Right.
where they really don't try to help people, and they just, let's take away the food stamps, let's take away the people's pension, let's take away, like, so what, grandpa's got to keep on doing DoorDash until he's 100. It's like you don't want to, you don't care, like grandpa's like still having to deliver, because you can't, he's got to buy his Lantus, he's got to buy his insulin, and you can't help him. It's like, what the heck?
Well, the Lord said money is the root of all evil, which is another thing that people miss. Not saying there's anything wrong with getting rich or making money, but the Lord is cautioning you. He said the love of money is the root of all evil, actually, not money itself. He's telling you what a slick and seductive and slippery slope of a trap, finances and the pursuit of them are. I don't believe the United States is the greatest country on earth. I don't give a shit how much money this country has. It depends on who the fuck you ask if they actually have money. This country is not the greatest to me because this country is not a country full of love. It's not a country where people are equally accepted. When I'm in Mexico, when I'm in Japan, when I'm in Dubai or Abu Dhabi or places like that, it's the reverse. They don't do the individualism shit. It's about the collective good, putting the other person first. That's how they lead in with, how can I make your day better? Not let me go grab a bunch of shit and come home, take all the toilet paper from the store when the coronavirus happened. No. I just want to let people know that wasn't every country. That's some United States bullshit.
It was us. Well, I'll tell you one thing. Like I lived in Tokyo for 2 years
Uh,
from 2004 to 2006, and all these people in my community were telling me, "Oh, you're going to have a terrible time. They're going to be racist." And I came back and I told them this: when I lived in Tokyo working my IT job, right, for 2 years, and my daughter went to Japanese school. I tell you right now, I felt like a human being for the first time in my life being an American. I had never traveled anywhere else. I was treated with so much respect there as a human being that I was treated with a level of respect I still don't get here. And so when people tell me that this is the best place in the world, I think do need to travel to actually see for yourself, and don't just listen to some talk radio guy telling you something, or whatever your neighbor telling you, some of your preacher telling you. Like, you need to actually go check it out. Because if you find out, like I did, that like I didn't care. The people, I wanted to go there because I was into the culture. I'm a Buddhist. I actually practice Nichiren Daishonin Buddhism, which actually is a Japanese form of Buddhism. But I was just shocked by how much I just didn't want to come home. I didn't want to come home because I kind of knew when I came home I'd be back into the shit. you know, but yeah, I get
precisely,
it.
precisely. I'm going to tell you, people who can't do well in Japan, they might be white. Look, I'm not racist. I've had so much white dick. I should be like, I should be cut off from it at this point. I love all the races and all the boys with their toys. Hello. But, the people of Japan kind of remember, wars and certain bombs that may or may not have been dropped on them and just certain shit that happened. And they know that it was
Yeah.
not people of color making those decisions. Okay. This is what I learned when I was in Japan. The Japanese people are not a bitter folk. They keep their opinions to themselves. But okay, white people in the United States, you did what you did. So they're not exactly fully
Yeah.
over now. So, but it was the same thing. I loved being over there, and I saw all people of color on marketing advertisements. I barely saw a white person. It was equal. It's like flipped. I felt, like you said, respected
Yeah.
and everything like that, and it was just like shock and awe. Now, look, white people can go and have fun in Japan, but respect the culture. Learn some of the language before you go. Learn the culture, and don't just show up expecting everything to be done for you. And that is how you gain the respect of the people of Japan. Show them you give a damn before you go.
Yeah. Yeah. A gaijin. Yeah, you'll be a gaijin, in that mentality. Like, I was invited to my Japanese friends' homes and actually was able to have like a real dinner, and I thought it was such an honor because not every Japanese person is going to invite you in their home if you have that ugly American attitude. You're probably not getting
No.
invited to a Japanese home dinner. You're probably not going to get invited for that. But like I was going, I had my sensei. I was learning the language. I was giving my reports in Japanese. I had respect for the culture. I had my daughter not enrolled in an American school, but in Nishimachi, which is a Japanese school. I wanted her to go to the Japanese school because I wanted her to really learn. I didn't want her to learn the American school version of what they wanted her to learn.
That was very open-minded of you. Now,
Yeah. So what are the things that, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, for people who want to have an open-minded escape that cannot get all the way the fuck over to Japan, it's not like it's just a hop, skip, or anything. It's like way the fuck over there. You
Yeah.
could just go down to like Puerto Vallarta, not Cancun and all that. Fly your ass into a place like Puerto Vallarta, or maybe like the Baja Peninsula. It's super open-minded there too. They're not going to take none of this Karen American bullshit there either. Leave Karen at home. But if you want to chill and be respected, and be considered and treated like an equal, I do recommend places like Puerto Vallarta and different places in Mexico.
So we've been talking about like just the attitude within America, within religion and the overall society. But What is your view of Christianity and other world religions? Like I said, I'm a Nichiren Daishonin Buddhist, and I used to be a Christian. I became that because I married my she was that. But what's your view of Christianity and other world religions after experience?
There's a free book that I have on my website, sexdrugsandjesus.com, that's called Don't Call Me a Christian, that I wrote, that I wanted to put out to vent my frustrations against Christianity. I hate the word. I mean, do I hate the word Christianity? I don't think that word serves us. So I consider myself to simply be a believer in the Trinity, period. Because the word Christian is too polarizing. The last time I ever referred to myself as a Christian, I was talking to this lady and it came up somehow. And she was like, I told her I'm a Christian. She paused and got really cold. Like the connection was lost between us the moment I said that fucking C word. And she was like, are you the good kind or the asshole kind? And I was like, you know what? We just gonna take this word, ball it up, light it on fire, and throw it in the fucking trash, because she was kind enough to ask that because we were volunteering together and we were going to be sitting with each other for an hour or two. But in passing, most people are not going to give me that courtesy. If they have experienced religious trauma or something like that, and I use the C word on them, they're just going to shut off. And that's going to be the end of it. I'm not losing friends and associates because of being affiliated with fucking Christians and their assholey ways. World religions. I don't believe everybody's supposed to be a Christian. I don't believe that if you're not a Christian, you're going to burn in hell or anything like that. I believe that I don't know every fucking thing. And then it's not fair to think that everybody's supposed to be Christian. Christianity is a Middle Eastern religion. And so if somebody was born in Tokyo, why in the fuck would they naturally want to be a part of a Middle Eastern religion, whatever it is, be it Islam, Christianity, as opposed to a Shinto Buddhist or something like that? So I don't
Shinto Buddhist.
So I don't know, just whatever it is. I don't have an opinion on world religions. I just like it when people have some sort of formed opinion on something, and then they're finding some kind of way to nurture their soul. Because the Lord did not tell me to go out and beat people up and try to force them to be Christians. He just said, if I be lifted up, I would draw all men onto me. So basically, he said, make a big deal out of me. And if it's for anybody to be saved or to be converted, I'm the only one who has the power to convert them. And so all you got to do is talk about religious things, and people are going to be drawn to whichever one that they're supposed to go to. So I'm a fan of conversation about them all. The thing that gets on my nerves with my friends is that I'm the only one in any of my friend circles who initiates spiritual conversation. So I'm like, girl, we done talked about everybody we fucked this weekend, all the alcohol that we done, all the clubs and all the travel. Why can't we talk about spiritual stuff too? So I respect them all. I just want people to pick something and be serious about it, because you're not going to be in this life forever.
Well, I think having a spiritualism is a good place to be, because that's where my head's at, because I don't try to convert people to Nichiren Daishonin Buddhism. I don't think if you're not a Nichiren Daishonin Buddhist that you don't belong in my house. I don't think that you can't do this and you can't do that. It's like, okay, I want to have a conversation about spirituality, because I'm part, Native American, Indigenous American. I'm Cherokee and Blackfoot. And so I have a lot of spiritual concepts I got from my great grandmother, who was a Blackfoot. And the idea of that kind of indigenous culture that believed in, Gaia, believed in like spirit animals, and believed in nature and other things besides like a central kind of higher power. That the earth is actually a god. Like the wind is a god. I can understand all kinds of ideas, and I don't denigrate somebody because they believe that. I think people should be able to have their own spirituality. It's a personal thing. And why should you force yours on anybody else?
I'm going to tell you one thing. Why they do it, because it reinforces their insecurities and need for validation, which is what we were talking about earlier. It is a very arrogant thing for, like, say, a Jehovah's Witness to knock on my door and be like, "Do you know the Lord?" And I'm all like, I'm nice enough to tell the bitch yes, but she doesn't believe me, and she wants to go ahead with her whole song and dance any fucking way. No, she's not doing that for me. She's doing that for her, because they need to
Yes,
know
get
for
it.
their own salvation that they have enough converts and shit like that. Preachers take it very personally if they do an altar call and nobody stands up to receive the Lord. Well, it's actually not about the preacher. One time I had a preacher, it was my first time at this church. They did the altar call. Some people think if they've never seen you in church before, then you must worship Satan. And so I'm all like, you can't just be visiting. He literally came and tapped me on the shoulder, tried to force me to stand up to accept Jesus just so he would not look like he didn't do a good job preaching. But you don't know if the Lord's converting someone while they're sitting down, if he's going to deal with them when they get home. It's not about your whole show that you're trying to put on when you're in front of your
Yeah.
fucking congregation. I will say this about the Buddhists, though, because I've been to the Buddhist temple. You know, I love hanging out with other bald bitches like me. It feels so like where I'm supposed to be. They got fucking good vegetarian food. Oh my God. I don't know how they make money. They never ask for money. The place is spotless. It's like huge acres or whatever much. It's just like they could house people and shit. And you can eat off the floor. They don't force you to bow down and worship Buddha if you don't want to. It's super open minded. And did I say the food was good? It was. I never thought my
Yeah,
belly would feel like it would burst on a vegetarian meal. It was a lot of damn food. Nobody
yeah.
asked me to pay for anything. It was so welcoming. And I mean, this is the Buddhist temple. When the floods happened here, it was the Buddhist people out there with their vans getting people, just strangers or whoever, to bring them onto the complex, onto the compound, so they wouldn't, fucking die. Where were the fucking Christians? I'm not saying there wasn't. I'm not saying there wasn't any out there somewhere, but I'm
Somewhere
telling
maybe.
you, what I do know happened was that the Buddhist was out there doing the most. Christians
You
usually
know,
wait till the fucking shit, the storm then pass, and then they might open the buildings. Honey, the Buddhist was out there while the rain was still falling. So
well, it's the law of cause and effect. We kind of believe in, like, if you do good, you good comes to you. If you do bad, bad comes to you. We don't feel that somehow you can give yourself a pass for the bad you do, and suddenly you're doing bad, and then suddenly you can just change it. That
right.
can be rational. That if you continue to do bad, it keeps on coming back as you get reincarnated. It doesn't go away. So, so the idea that you can do evil things and then suddenly fix it at the last minute, we don't kind of think that way. But it doesn't work that way for us. But it's just everybody has their own mindset. But I think the idea that if the law of cause and effect is just like it's just kind of instant. Like in Christianity, if you love your neighbor, thou shalt not kill. Those that kind of a law of cause and effect. If you do good things, then good things should happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of religions have something like that in it. But I think this the idea of just being spiritual, being a musician and producer. I have a very open mind because I go many directions. And I don't want to be restricted in what I say, what I write, the topics I deal with. And the problem I have sometimes with the Christian kind of mindset is if somebody says, "Oh, I'm a Christian singer," so then that immediately means I can't talk about so many things. I'm being censored. I can't do the work. I can't do, you know. And so that's where I kind of get the connotation of the restriction that's coming out today in a lot of Christianity, which maybe not every Christian's doing that, but there's so many that are, and maybe it's giving the ones that aren't a bad name.
Christianity, be it, in all of its aspects, is so restricted that it does not translate as being real to people. And this is why you have people doing a mass exit from churches, especially Christianity, because it's plastic, it's fake. People are waking up to it. Like, nobody can tell me what any of these popular preachers have like done. I don't study the worship leaders, but I remember sitting in church thinking like, fuck, I really can't relate to these people. I don't know. I mean, am I the only one who sucked dicks in alleys and shot up dope and, sold drugs? They don't really show us what their dark side is, you know. So
And they have
right
it
off.
too. You can read it in the paper.
Oh,
You can find it in the paper. You can find out that they're like hiding.
oh. Yes, honey, we have the receipts. And there's people who, like my friend Barry Bowen, he works at the Trinity Foundation over in Texas, of all places, who they investigate churches and mega churches and pastors and put reports out on what they're doing. There's an Instagram channel called Preachers and Sneakers where this guy tracks and takes, the money. Like he'll be like, this preacher, Creflo Dollar, $20,000 jacket, like all the receipts
Yeah. What are you doing?
are there,
Yeah.
So it's so
Yeah.
censored
So
that it's just not.
they have all this. Yeah, they're just control. I mean, it's like when you're preaching to people who've kind of been brainwashed, it becomes like I don't know if you want to speak to that the cult kind of level. Like, like could you equate the way some of these are to like a Jonestown, or to a David Koresh? Is it the mindset can be that destructive where
We are
people are being
designed.
that kind of cultish in terms of
Yeah, my good friend John Werner has a podcast and a book called The Cult of Christianity, because Christianity is a cult. And what is a cult? Anytime you mindlessly follow a leader due to fear or whatever the motivating factors are, and you follow them without judgment and discretion, and you do not question them, and you don't prove what they say and do. So yeah, Christianity is a cult because
Mhm.
it's become one. It has become one. But Jesus himself was not a fucking Christian. That's some human shit. The whole concept
Yeah.
of it is based on humans. And so
Yeah, that's a humanist. It seems like a humanist. To me, you seem more of a person that just understood what humans should try to elevate to, like elevation of the spirit, the heart, and the mind. And you can see it in multiple philosophers who had the same idea all over the planet. There are multiple people that had the same kind of concept, right? And it's usually a very expansive, not exclusive. It's expanding. It's not an exclusionary thing. It's something that would be more. You love all human beings. You all love all humankind, no matter who they are, what they are, what they've done. You actually have that mindset, but it doesn't seem that what they're doing in the cultish versions is that. It seems like something else.
they're going there to get what they need. Like there was no benefit to the world for whatever it was they were doing in Jim Jones's church before they went all down there to
Yeah, just
Africa.
for Jim.
you know, right, to kill themselves. There was no logic there. So the rapture's coming. Prove that. How do you know? I can't tell you when any of the megachurch preachers, when did they receive their calling? Was it an angel? Was it a dream? Was it a vision? At what point were you not working for God? Then when did that start? These things you say are going to come true. Did it happen? There's no checks and balances. They don't allow that shit in church. That is when you know you're in a
Mhm.
cult. And you question the preacher. Are they transparent about their finances? When they make decisions, do they let the members vote? Or do they just come up on stage and tell you we paid for this and we bought that? No, bitch. You can get some goddamn voting machines in here like they do on election day if you really wanted people's input. At Lakewood Church, my friend Barry Bowen at Trinity Foundation, they found out that Lakewood Church only has, they don't actually have members documented. It is run by a board of directors that is basically all Osteen family people. Okay. There is no input from somebody who is not fucking an Osteen or has fucked an Osteen or is, close knit with them like that. In other words, they get up there on stage and go, "Oh my God, y'all are all welcome. We consider you family. Be one of us. Hashtag I am Lakewood." But at the goddamn decision-making table, bitch, you're not represented. That is a fucking cult, because you're tricked into thinking you have a buy-in and a stake, but practically you don't. But you feel warm and fuzzy and all tingly. But practically, you ain't worth shit to them people.
Yeah, I think that's where people. I guess they just have people have a, like, I think they have a internal need to feel that the world makes sense, right? And the problem is, like, without religion, then you get fear. People get fearful because they want to have some level of certainty, and these people will provide certain certainty, but it's like a false. It's a false sense of security, right?
Lot.
It's just a false sense of security. So it gives you this idea. So you don't want to be in the world and actually, oh, the world's that scary. Oh, it's that intense. It's that real. You can't deal with the realness of the world. So you got to have this fake thing, veneer put on it to make you feel comfortable.
Lies, scandals, and deception is what it is. But I'm gonna say something that I think is gonna set a lot of your people free, because most of us learn about religion and stuff from our families. And the thing is, you cannot inherit religion. You have got to have a personal experience before it will ever become real to you. People are so brainwashed because we receive from our families. But I know, like, queer people who go to Pentecostal churches. Why the fuck would you go to a Pentecostal church when they hate everything that you are? Because mommy told you to go to a Pentecostal church and that's where you were raised. And you haven't come into your own thinking. That is called being brainwashed into a cult. So people understand
That's
why.
definitely like a self-hate. It's like a self-hate thing. If you can have people that are like, black people are racist against themselves when they get conned into supporting a structure that actually is against them. Right. So if you're like, it's like you self-hate. So if you're a gay person and you go into an organization that really clearly hates gay people, right? But you are self-hating because you just follow something you don't think. There's no thinking, because they're definitely a culture thing. Because you can't look in the mirror and see who you are, and these people are denigrating who you are, and you sit there and take it. It's kind of a slave mentality. You're like, you're not getting out of it. You're like, you're locked into it. You're not able to get out.
That's that word from the Shawshank Redemption. You've been institutionalized.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I hear people say that they sat there. I know we have to wrap up. I'm gonna just say this and I'll shut my cock holster, because this is a super pet peeve. People will sit there in those churches and be like, they'll say, well, I'll tune out the part where they talk against gay people. Bitch, you're still under that vibrational energy. You're still exposed to it. You are hurting yourself on a microcellular level every time you allow yourself to be in a space where somebody speaks against who you are. So you might think you're just tuning it out. No, you're still damaging yourself. And my community is so riddled with mental health issues. People leave these churches.
Yeah, it's not necessary. Yeah, well, once something gets out there, it gets in your psyche. And you could say you didn't hear it, but you heard it. You're just subconsciously trying to not hear it, and you basically are causing yourself an illness. You're continuing your illness. You're making yourself worse. You're not helping yourself at all, because if you can't, the thing I learned all the time is, like, from any kind of therapy, is that you got to love yourself. If you're in an environment that hates and actually uses it as a foundational structural pillar, how are you ever going to get better in that? There's no way you could.
You can't. It's like getting out of an abusive relationship. You can't. That was one of the things, the hard decisions I had to make with getting away from my ex, who's a covert narcissist, very, like, emotionally abusive and manipulative. I couldn't stay friends with him. I don't, know what God gonna do in the future, but I had to completely cut off all communication in order to focus on healing myself. You cannot expose yourself to the source of trauma and expect to recover, because you're going to be re-traumatized on a consistent basis. That's how you keep yourself in bondage. You have to cut the whole thing loose and start all over again.
Well, I think that's where we can end on that note, because I think it's a very positive note. I think a lot of people need to actually think about things in their life where they need to do that, because a lot of people probably have points in their life where they haven't done that. And I think I also wanted to mention your website was www.sexdrugsandjesus.com, maybe briefly can tell people what they can find there before we close out tonight.
You can find me, darling, on my beautiful pictures, bio, and everything. I just allowed myself a vain moment. So my book is there. Anything I write, my blogs, link over to my retail website downunderapparel.com. Basically, everything's there. All the social media, everything.
Okay, thank you. And again, for people who want to see this again, we'll be on Spotify, video podcast, Apple, iHeartRadio later tomorrow. And thank you very much. We'll send you a landing page so you can share that with your audience. We appreciate you being on the Fam Electric Ghost podcast. Thank you.
Doi tashimasu te arigato gozaimasu.